Hi,
Hello,
okay, great.
hello.
Everyone's here.
Hi.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Collective's virtual panel, Dinero and Dreams, Latinas in Finance. We're so excited to have you here for what promises to be a dynamic conversation spotlighting Latinas who are breaking barriers and rewriting the rules of finance. For those of you who are new to the Soul Collective, we are a community-driven platform dedicated to empowering Gen Z Latinas through career development, mentorship, and cultural connection. Today, we'll hear from three powerhouse mujeres who are building wealth, leading investment strategies, and creating access for our communities, from Wall Street to wealth education to community investing. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Lea Landaverde, known as the Latina Wealth Activist, Lea is a three-time award-winning financial educator and the founder of Riqueza Collective, a bilingual platform dedicated to financial empowerment for marginalized communities. With over a decade of experience across investment banking, tech, and wealth management, Leah's closing the wealth gap one conversation and one community at a time. Next, we have Frances, a first-gen Puerto Rican finance professional. Frances is currently a controllership accounting and reporting associate at Ernst Young in Charlotte, North Carolina, with prior roles at KPMG and RSM Puerto Rico, and both a master's and bachelor's in accounting. She brings a powerful lens on representation in corporate finance. Last, we have Anastasia, an impact investor, strategist, and founder of Libra Leaders. Anastasia is on a mission to reimagine economic equity. From building inclusive investing frameworks to channeling capital into Latina-owned businesses, her work is reshaping what entrepreneurship looks like. She was recently honored as Young Alumna of the Year by California Lutheran School of Management. Leah, Francis, Anastasia, thank you so much for joining us today, and we can dive right in. To start off with your journeys, maybe everyone can share a few sentences or like a few things about how each of you entered the world of finance and maybe share like if there was a pivotal moment or person or experience that kind of shaped your path.
Maybe I can kick off and then we can pass it on. So thank you everyone for tuning in, who's taking the time during their day to have this conversation. First of all, there's not a lot of Latinas in finance, so being able to be in this sector and being able to break the barriers is really beautiful. So seeing all these Latinas, on stages is such a abundant feeling. But my story began really when I watched my parents lose everything in the housing crisis in '08. That was kind of my pivotal moment of understanding that money matters in this country more than ever, and community, unfortunately, isn't the only thing that can uplift you, especially during times of economic uncertainty. And I know definitely we feel that right now. And so watching my parent foreclose on their home, lose vehicles, through repossession, and then also filing for bankruptcy, it really put everything into perspective of, okay, if, as a first gen, clearly money matters, right? I wasn't taught the pathway to navigate money, neither were my parents. They come from El Salvador. So for me, it was important to understand the core of money. So my whole entire background is in finances because I guess it's almost like a trauma response to what happened in my life of, okay, if I'm not the only one that doesn't know money, like my family isn't the only one. And the more that I shared my story online, the more that people are like, me too, this happened to me too. My parents don't understand, which has become like a common theme of what I do, is being able to empower people during these times of how to manage the finances.
I can go next. Also, like Leah, I can completely relate to that. Like my parents also filed for bankruptcy, and it really changes the perspective of money. But I'd say like my biggest pivotal moment was COVID, right? Like I was a freshman in college, so I was really like just out of high school, so I still had like that high school mentality. I wasn't really taking I was taking it serious, but not like existential crisis serious. So once COVID hits, that you realize you can't go out, you can't play your sports. Like I used to be in the soccer team in my university. You really got to sit and think like introspectively, like what do I want to do? Like I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life. What can I do? Like who do I want to become? Right. And my moment was, you know what? I decided to go for it and become president of my accounting association. And that was the biggest thing that changed completely my views and like my career path. Like it really opened up so many doors. So I will continuously be saying this, but joining organizations are the best thing you could do in your university, in your college life. So yeah, that was my biggest pivotal moment. And now I'm where I'm at because of it.
That's so cool. I think with like this question, everyone, each of us can just write a whole novel about it because I mean, there's lots of reasons of how we got into finance. And with mine, it kind of started with education as well. Growing up for my parents, it was such a huge deal to go to school, and go to school. And so finally, when I had reached that college point, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to study. I had no idea what kind of career I wanted. I've tried all kinds of things. So I think that would be my advice is just to try a little bit of everything. For me, at one point, I really liked photography. So I, spent a couple years taking photography classes, and that was really like fulfilling to my creative side of my personality. And then like it's cool right now because I've sort of done like a full circle to it because I abandoned that skill and now I'm back into that space. But with the finance component, I just started taking some business courses. I thought it was really straightforward, and I was really drawn into my marketing classes specifically, which again is just really funny how I ended up working in venture capital, even though those were like upfront, those were my initial interests. But basically, what had happened was I, filled out this application to join this federal funded program called the McNair Scholars Program during undergrad. And basically, that program, the main goal is to help, students of low income background to go and apply for a graduate school with the task of completing a research program or a research project. And so through that, I was able to network and build more relationships with the business professors at my school. And so I had worked with this one professor who had a PhD in entrepreneurship. And, we had like an initial call, and he's just like, what would you be interested in researching? What topics, speak to you? And one of the things that's just been a question for me since childhood is that, why is it that like Latino owned businesses are always like at a very small scale, whether it's like we're babysitting, whether it's we're selling tamales door to door, or, we're like doing that kind of like, it's always a small scale, right? And it's very like local driven. And I've always wondered why haven't we seen like some top Latinos like the next, Facebook, the next, Microsoft, like why haven't we entered that space that is more tech driven? So that was a question of mine that I've had all my life, maybe not that thoroughly, in depth when I was 5, but it was something that I was always curious about. It was something that I've always observed in my neighborhood, in my childhood, and so on. And basically, I completed that research program, presented it to multiple different universities within California, and also going to the East Coast to present my findings. And through that, I was able to network with a couple venture capitalists because they were interested in that thesis of mine, which was, what is it that Latino entrepreneurs need in order to gain more capital and more investments? Because it turns out that only 2% of like venture capital funding goes to Latino owned businesses. 2%. That's like significantly, like that's just pennies compared to what is being, distributed out. And so ultimately, that's just like how I ended up in working in finance was through that research that I had conducted during undergrad.
I love that. I just want to say thank you all for your vulnerability. And I was like jotting down some notes as you all were talking. And I completely resonate with what you were saying, Leah. Like, as a first gen, I feel like learning how to like take out loans for college and like do all this stuff. Like, I was also teaching my parents, so completely feel you there. And then Francis, like, I think a lot of times, as you know, because there are students listening to this, I think that leadership opportunities on campus are kind of overlooked. But I think I loved how you like reiterated the fact that it honestly like helped you find your footing in the accounting world. And I think that that's a great like piece of advice for those listening. Like, don't overlook campus leadership opportunities because they can really be really formative experiences. And then Anastasia, like, yes, I'm all for being a multifaceted person. So I love that you kind of entered in not necessarily studying what you're doing now, but that just goes to, like, it shows it's a testament to like the power of just like following what your passions are, and it'll the the right career will find you. Moving on to our
100%.
next question. What does being a Latina in finance mean to you personally, and how has your identity influenced your career or perspective on money?
I can start off and then just work backwards. Um, I think that's a really good question because I think for me currently, I'm going through this like mental exercise of like the labeling of it all, right? Because it's like Latinas in finance. There's already assumptions to just being titled or viewed that way. And it's like good things and it could be seen as like a negative thing too, right? Because it's like on one hand, the way I see it, because like Leah mentioned early on, it's like there's not a Latinas that are in this space, right? So it's like the question then becomes, it's like, are we only serving Latinas? Like, do we not have the capability to scale upwards to then like the message that I'm providing, is it a message that can be applicable to all like, demographics? And so I think that's like an internal thing that I deal with is just like, you know, how often do I need to put Latina in front of me? Like even before I say my name, right? Um, but so it's like a dual. There's like two sides to it. I see it as a really empowering thing. I feel like another thing too is that people are always looking for a way, for a sense of community. So I feel like that's how I leverage it to on my side is like, let me use that. Let me be proud of my Latinidad to like show other women that I'm here and that we are here and there are people who care about building an organization, building a group where we can all convene and reunite. Um, and then also learning how to like pivot and be like keeping myself more broad, that it's like I want job opportunities. I'm looking for other things that are not just focused in our community too. So I'll just pause there and let the other girls share their thoughts on it.
No, you bring a really interesting point. Like sometimes it could be taken to the context where it's limiting us in a sense, like we're Latinas, but I understand, I can see your point. Like for me, Latina in finance right now in this moment, it feels like a sense of responsibility. Like right now, I've like with everything that's going on politically and socially, like I really feel like us that are in the spaces right now, this is the moment where we need to continue taking up that space. We need to continue being advocates because the path for future generations right now looks so cloudy, looks so difficult. And us already being in that space is such a responsibility with it. And then just to address the second question, there about it was could you remind me the question? Sorry.
No, you're fine, of course. The
Yeah.
second one was how has your identity influenced your career or perspective on
Mm.
money?
Oh, yeah. So there's a beauty in being extremely proud from where you're from. Like everywhere I go and any chance I get, I want to mention I'm from Puerto Rico. Like that is part of my identity. You know, growing up and being raised in a culture that is so kind and understanding and empathetic and joyful, like those are aspects that a lot of people don't bring to the workspace. And it's one of the main characteristics that I love about myself and my culture. So I bring that into every project, anything I do, I like to have that with me because it's who I am. And the beauty of it is that it shows, like, even if you don't realize it, people notice that about you. And it's amazing. So that's those are my thoughts on it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Frances and Anastasia. I think both of your perspectives are valid in the sense that being a Latina in finance, I think is um The reason, so I've been in the field for over 10 years, and when I started as like a Latina in finance, I was always the only one. I was the only one in my class to graduate with a bachelor's degree that was Latina in finance. And then if I think about my master's program, I think there was maybe two or three of us in the program itself that graduated as Latinas. And so when I look at Latinas in finance, I think there's one growth and opportunity, because similar to what Francia said, is like we need more of us now, and we need to use our voice and amplify a lot of the messaging. About like wealth protection, or about understanding economics, or understanding just like entrepreneurship, and what do we need to be investing in, what do we need to be looking at, through even like the VC lens. And I love how you have here like forward looking entrepreneurship, finance, and then we have like financial literacy education, we have accounting, which is all about we had tax day come up last a few weeks ago. And so like these are all different aspects of finance that I personally I geek over. I can geek over finance over and over again, because finance is something that at the end of the day, money is inevitable. Like money is a critical piece of entrepreneurship, of our lives, of the economy. And so understanding it and being a Latina in this field is magical, because I've actually been able to grow a platform based on that itself. Like Latina Wealth Activist is my creator handle. And I've been able to use my knowledge in finance to be able to empower the community, be able to motivate other Latinas to go into finance, and also help other Latinas in the career aspect of growing their, whether the financial platform through money coaching, or whether it's pursuing a financial degree or financial planning, degree. I've been able to like change people's lives through my experience, because when I told them what I went through, they're like, oh my God, I feel you. I've gone through that myself. Or, hey, I'm about to enter this phase. What do you, want to, what do you help me with in, addressing these barriers? And so for me, like I use it as my anchor to what I do, because being a Latina in finance is rare, but it's beautiful. And yeah, I do feel sometimes like I have a lot of weight on my shoulders, because I share a lot about economics and how that ties to politics and stuff like that. But I also see the beauty in how I've been able to leverage my culture to embrace what it is to be a Latina in finance. Because I guess in the last year, I've been in more of the VC field of entrepreneurship. As a founder myself, it's super important for me to understand how can I grow and scale a business in a different way that isn't the traditional mom and pop shops, similar to what Anastasia is saying, how we only see ourselves, in local communities, and we don't really scale further, and especially into the tech fields. And so in the last year, I've been more in the VC field, which combines my passion for entrepreneurship and finance. And that alone is an opportunity of, you know, abundance, because every event that I've gone to, every community that I've, been in that is Latinos and VC, have been all about abundance mentality. How can we help you get funding? How can we help you scale? Who do you need to connect with? And that's the difference between, I think, us and other like communities, is that we make it so family oriented, because we are Latinos, we are passionate about our community in these spaces. And I personally love being able to say, I'm Latina and I'm in these sectors, in these fields, I'm multi-passionate. But at the same time, just because you're Latina, they see you as an hermana. They see that they can help you. They see you as a prima. And it just is so empowering to be in these spaces, and take up space.
I could not agree more. Like, while you were saying this, I was just thinking back to the first time that Frances and I met. I know, Anastasia, and you kind of already heard this, but for our listeners, like, Frances and I met at a conference, and I was there by myself with a girl from my like same area, and I didn't know anyone. I just remember like the weight that was lifted off my shoulders, and like all my nervousness just like left when I heard Frances and her friends speaking Spanish. I was like, oh, my people, like, and we like spent the whole weekend together, and like we cried at a workshop, like. So no, like I think that there's something so beautiful about being a Latina, and like I think personally, like with my peers, my friends actually watching this, and I'm gonna call her out, but it's just so nice being surrounded by other girls who are like as ambitious and like have that hustler mentality, because it's like I think it comes with such like it's just so advantageous, because I feel like even just in the way we were raised, like it sets us up with such unique perspectives that we can take into pretty much any like industry, any like venture, just because like it allows us to like resonate deeply and authentically with our communities in ways that other people can't. So loved that. I love all of your responses to that one. Leah, you were kind of talking about how, um, there's such a wide spectrum and like so many opportunities within finance. It's very much a huge umbrella term and it can be kind of overwhelming, but I'd love to hear how each of you kind of found your niche within the industry.
I guess I'll kick off, and then you can pass it down. And I found finance because I actually was originally going to be an accounting major. And I walked into my counselor's room, office, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of a statistic. I don't want to continue being the only one. I want to take up space and I want to think outside the box. Where can I think, you know, because I personally knew accounting because my parents did landscaping growing up. They had a business, and so I helped them with bookkeeping a lot of my life. And so I was like, I just don't feel passionate about this book. How can I think like forward looking into my career? And my counselor was like, study finance. Trust me, you will love it. It's challenging. There's so much different sectors in that field alone. Has accounting principles involved in it, but it's not the main, you know, focus. There's like investing, there's financial planning, wealth management. There's so much into it that you can look at. And I challenge you to to switch your majors, if you really want to think outside the box. And I did. I believed in her and believed in myself to switch majors and well, I loved it. And I mean I got a master's in it. So that was kind of my way of thinking.
Okay. Yeah, switching from accounting to finance. Wow. So disappointed. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I entered in accounting and I did like my first intro class, but definitely you need to find your specialization, right? And the the thing about accounting is that people think it's just tax, bookkeeping, or audit. Those are like the three main categories. And I'm a person who doesn't like to live with regret. Like I like to know that I made the right choice because I knew all the opportunities. Like I tried them. Going to what Anastasia said earlier, like I totally agree of like you need to try everything before you choose. Because you don't want to live with that regret of like, what if I would have liked taxes more? Or what if auditing was my calling and I never did it? So once again, I'm going to say, join your organizations because I found all internships that I've had through organizations and I got to try all three of them. And I realized I didn't like any of them. So it was a little bit tough. So I ended up making that connection within RSM and asking if I could look into IT consulting, include like IT controls within the accounting world, which those are like stock reports and stuff like that. But I don't want to get too technical. But point is that after I tried that, that's when I found, oh my God, I want to do consulting. It's so dynamic. There's no one line. Like you're looking at these problems and you have to come up with good responses and decision making and trying to help your client through it. So once I did an internship in that, I knew I was like, this is it. So I'm again an advocate for doing every internship that you possibly can and trying to find, because you might like something, but you never know what you'll like more or what'll be like your passion, because once you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel, I mean, it's work, but it's not as bad. But yeah, that's how I found my my consulting role.
Yeah, I can totally echo that sentiment of when you identify your passion, it really doesn't feel like work. And for me, it was, kind of that transition of like graduating to now finding like my next full-time role. And it's like right before graduation, I had completed my research project that was focusing on Latino entrepreneurship. And really, like that was like a year-long research project that I had worked on independently alongside with my mentor, just giving me feedback throughout the different stages of research. But by spending like dedicating a whole year on that research thesis paper, that really just all that work within a matter of weeks, I was able to secure a job right after graduation working at Latitude Ventures, which is like $100 million venture fund that specifically or exclusively invests in Latino-owned businesses in the US. So that was just kind of like that was just really cool that it happened that way very organically. With the research project, I had to recruit, participants. And with my paper, I had to look for, half of the group, half of the participants I wanted them to be, Latino investors, angel investors, or founders based in the state of California. And then the other half had to be like non-Latino, investors, founders, you get the idea behind it. And so it was through that exercise that I realized I'm like, there's not a lot of Latinos like in entrepreneurship just in general. And through that, I was able to, get one of the partners from that firm to participate in my research project. And so this is all during COVID. So everything is like just through email, like not even a Zoom call. It was just like, we're just gonna figure out how we're going to figure it out as we go with this research project. So it was really fun. It was like some highs and lows. I'm like, this is a lot harder than I thought with the whole research project. Um, but through that, we were able to like build like a good relationship, a good rapport with each other. And then, at the end of it, when I was finished with that paper, I just sent them a copy. I'm like, this is all the work that we did. So like, thank you for answering every single question that I have, the surveys that I sent out. Like, thank you for being like committed to that research project. And it was like afterwards where like things were starting to get a little bit better with COVID restrictions and that, investor actually came back on campus to give like a TED talk basically. And that's when my mentor from the research project was like, you better go to that event and you better go say hi to them because they, gave you like free, like they basically worked for you for free for that research project. I was like, okay, got it. Like, we'll do. And I followed up and I, greeted that person in real life. And, it was one of those things where it's just like, had already been a year since that project was done. And that person remembered me as if it was like just yesterday that we finished that research project. And I basically pitched that investor, basically saying, like, hey, I'm getting ready to graduate in like next month. And I really like the work that you guys are doing at Latitude Ventures. Like, I have my own thesis. You guys have your investment thesis. It's very much like there's a huge alignment there. Um, and so like I just would like to work with you guys. Not knowing completely what it takes to be a venture capitalist, not really knowing what the day-to-day operations look like, but just simply because there is like a huge problem of like only 2% of funding going to Latino entrepreneurs. And I want to be a part of that solution. So like, let me see how I could work with you guys. Like I will work at any position. Do you know what I mean? It was just one of those things of like, I don't know even what my title would look like, what my responsibilities would be laid out as, but I just want to be a part of it. And they already knew like, hey, she could like complete a whole research project by herself and it took her a year and she could do it. So they invested in me, right? Like, maybe not like literally like how it works with founders when they pitch to investors, but it was kind of like my own version of it. So I I look back at that very fondly because it's just like that's cool that I made that opportunity for myself. And so I think that would be my message too, is just like don't ever hesitate to ask because you'll never know the things that people would be willing to do, like move mountains to make it happen.
I love that. Thank you all for sharing. I find it so interesting just to hear about people's experiences leading up to like where they are now. So that was definitely inspiring, and I definitely second what you said, Anastasia, because the worst that people can say is no, and I'm very big on advocating for yourself. We're gonna kind of switch gears here, and I have individual questions for each of you. Francis, we'll start with you. You've navigated Big Four accounting spaces as a first-gen Latina. So what are some lessons you've learned that could help others entering corporate finance?
Okay, so corporate finance, even that term, it's intimidating. Like it can be intimidating and overwhelming. So it's definitely learning how to navigate through it, but starting at a fundamental basis. So the first lesson I learned is bringing and embracing your unique perspective. Like you being a Latina in finance, you bring so much value that so many others don't have. And it is a perk. It is your superpower because at the end of the day, there's no one, not even close to who you are. All your experiences that form your person, like that, no one can take that away from you. And it's a superpower. It's what you have to take ownership of that, of yourself, which kind of like ties into my second lesson, which is being confident in your abilities. So a lot of things that could happen are imposter syndrome, which is you don't feel like you belong, or you don't think that the opportunities that we're giving to you, you don't think it's because you earned it, right? So just believing in yourself and believing in everything that you have worked and tying it together to what I said earlier, the experiences that you've had made you who you are and gave you the capabilities that you have right now. And there's a reason you're in the space or you are working towards that space. So truly believe in yourself. And then lastly, and I'd say it's one of the most important, and we've even mentioned it here, is networking, connections. Another beauty that we have of being Latinas is that we are so friendly and we take care of each other. Once you hear someone speak Spanish, I go and I'm like, you're Latina too, or let's talk in Spanish. Let's create that connection. And you never know what doors could open by just having a conversation with someone. See, like for instance, I have never met these lovely ladies, Anastasia and Leah, and now I see their platforms and I am totally going to be like following them and seeing how they continue to develop themselves and see whenever I can, like reach out. So it's a small community, but we take care of each other. So definitely create that network and have your contacts, have your friends. And those are like the main lessons I've learned.
I love that. Yeah, I second definitely leaning into your network and not being afraid to just reach out to people. I feel like, especially being a student, you kind of have that upper hand because a lot of professionals are willing to help students. So definitely second that. Uh, Leah, as a financial educator, what are the most common money myths or fears you see in our community, and how do you help people move past them?
Oh, thank you for that. When it comes to money in our community, there's just this fear of not being good enough with your money. And because you saw your parents struggle financially, sometimes you kind of consume their fears and consume their wounds, and it becomes your own money wound. And so we are powerful as Latinas, but yet we are the most underpaid, right? Latinas make like what, 56 cents to a white man's dollar. So there's clearly a lot of money wounds when it comes to a relationship with money. There is a lot of pain and, second guessing of our value, because we have been taught through the systemic barriers in our society that, we have to work hard for what we earn. We have to be grateful for what we're given. And so there's these limiting beliefs that kind of sit on top of us culturally, also from society, our friendships, that, if we were all raised by white families, we probably wouldn't feel the same thing because they'd be like, negotiate your salaries. They would tell you, ask for more. They would tell you, have you checked, have you kept track of your progress at your job every quarter with your manager? Like these are things that they're automatically taught. When I started my career in investment banking, I remember, and the reason why I left actually the corporate world is because I was underpaid by $50,000. So it's through my own lived experience, I know that I even second guessed my worth. I second guessed my value, and I worked very, very hard for the firm that I worked for. And yet at the very end, my hard work and ethic didn't result in numbers in my paycheck. And so a common thing that I see, even when like students and first time like entering the corporate world or getting your first job is that we just accept what we're given because we're like, oh, we don't have experience, we don't have this, we don't have that. Roberto, you went to school, you studied, you got internships, you did all of this. Like you do have experience under your belt, or you worked with nonprofits or organizations. That all adds up to your value. And like I could preach on this all day because you have no idea how many people that I've seen not apply to that job because they said they weren't qualified enough. And I remember vividly when I was doing actively like money coaching, I had a client who was making 45,000 as like an elementary school teacher, and she really wanted to do special ed education, and which would bump her salary to more of a 70, 80K. And she's taken like certification. She's like, well, I just wanted to make sure that I get like 2 years under my belt under this role. I was like, well, just apply now. A ver qué, I was like, apply now. You have the qualifications. Maybe it's not perfect, but hey, uno nunca sabe. You don't know yet. And she applied and she actually got it. And she bumped her salary almost double because I was like, believe in yourself. Like you got it. Like you can do this. And when she got the new salary, she was like, wow, Leah, like all it took was me to apply. And I'm like, yeah. And that's the limiting beliefs. And those are our blockages. And why Latinas end up, earning 56 cents to a white man's dollar because we doubt ourselves. And so those inner wounds and those inner beliefs that like, you're not good enough. No, baby girl, you are good enough. You are supposed to be in that room. You are supposed to be in those spaces and you're supposed to take up that space and get your bag because girl, in this economy, nothing is free. So like, that's my biggest advice, and especially through like during these current economic times, is like no matter what, money will always be made. So there's no reason that you don't deserve what you deserve through your wage because baby girl, there's enough money in the world to go around for all of us.
Listening to you talk, I'm like, I need to book a session with you because that was so motivating. But I like couldn't agree more. And it's honestly reassuring hearing you say this because just a little like side tidbit and personal anecdote. I'm gonna graduate this year, and I remember I got my first job offer like in August or September. And right before this semester or like this year started, I made like a list for myself of like things that I like really, really want in a job. I honestly think I manifested the job that I am now, but like that first offer came around and it wasn't like what I wanted. And I sat on it for like a week. I honestly don't know how they didn't revoke it because I was like, oh, let me think about it. But I was like calling my mom and I was like, I don't know, like, should I take it? Like, it's the first one. Like, what if I don't get anything after? My mom's like, no, like, look back at that list. Like, you're gonna get that. Like, just trust. Because you're that girl. Thank you. And then I like denied the job offer, and I kid you not, like a few hours later, I got an email to interview for the job that I signed now, and it's the salary is exactly what I wanted because I placed my value pretty high based off my past experiences. And yeah, so I agree that sometimes people are like get scared and intimidated and they don't think that they're worth enough, but it's like no, like every experience that you have is added value to a team, and it can definitely feel very intimidating. Like I remember at my last internship, like I was the only student on my floor who wasn't at an Ivy school, and I was like, what am I doing here? But it definitely was just like empowering because I remember I went home crying one day and my mom was like, but listen, like you made it in that room, like you're literally there with them. And I was like, you're so right, mom. So I love everything that you said. Um, Anastasia, moving on to you now. Your work focuses on inclusive investing. What are some ways you're seeing capital flow into historically excluded communities, and where is there still work to be done?
Yeah, and I mean, Leah, your speech right now was just very moving. And like one other thing that I want to add on to that is just like I think there comes a time for like all Latinas in their life where it's just like this light bulb clicks in our head and it's like we need to like give ourselves the space to kind of unlearn some of the things that we've been raised to believe in, right? So I'll let that simmer with all of y'all. But yeah, like I think that's it's very true. And it's like, we do like we gotta give ourselves the space to kind of unlearn a couple things and just realize like, yeah, like maybe not everyone is aspiring to be humble. You know what I mean? Like I love that quote with from Kamala Harris. It's just like, yeah, like not all women aspire to be that, and like nor we should. Because that stat that you mentioned is just so true. It's like, yeah, we're getting paid like 50% less, 50% less. And it's just, that is just a crime at that point. But now to circle back to the main question. Well, I would say like back in 2019, I mean, there was just like a huge movement where a bunch of like prominent Latino professionals, not necessarily with that formal background in venture capital, but just like people in general who have had some massively successful careers started like now is the time to start venture funds that specifically invest in Latino entrepreneurship. So like back in 2018 or even further back, there was just this huge movement like all the way through 2021, 2022 of just all these like baby funds. These are not like necessarily institutional funds that have been in the game since the 80s or whatnot. They're like very, very new, like, under, 5 years old as a company. And so now there's like an actual ecosystem that I refer to as like the Latino VC ecosystem. And that is just like a range of all these venture funds that exclusively invest in Latino businesses. Not all of them. Some of them have their thesis a little bit more broad. So they invest in like, underrepresented founders. So that's like just a more loose term. There's some that invest in like, Latina specific driven businesses as well. Some that invest in just simply in the US, while others invest in globally, because obviously we have like we have the whole Latin America right there too. That is like a huge opportunity as well. So there's a huge like group of people who are motivated and wanting to invest in that space and that are wanting to do that. One of the challenges that I've witnessed firsthand working at one of those funds is just that it's like finding the unicorn, right? It's like finding that next Latino businesses or Latino entrepreneur who's going to hit like 1 billion, right? And it's like, it's just so hard because the thing about with venture capital funds is that they also have investors. So they have a thing called like limited partners. And those are like the Bank of Americas of the world. Those are like Chase or it's, these other big funds that have been in the game for like hundreds of years, right? So they invest in them under like impact investing or DEI. And like obviously we know where that's going. It's basically going down the drain. So it's very hard right now. We're seeing, companies running out of business. And, now it's like, so it's very shaky right now, actually. The question now in general is just like, is that the way that we should be going in now? Because also, what was it like last year that we saw um, the other fund, women-led fund that was like sued, right? Because they were only investing in Black women. And it's like, God forbid that you support Black women, right? And like it was like some radicalized, group that was suing them. And unfortunately, they won, right? Like that, they were able to like win that lawsuit. So it's just like, there's like, I don't know. It's just very tricky. And it's like, that's why I go back to that main point of like, do we put the Latina in front of our names? Because right now there's like a huge defense on the other side that's like not happy about that. They don't want to see us to succeed. And then I've had lots of conversations about this with, partners, with just colleagues of mine. It's kind of split in the middle. It's just like, no, like forget that. Like we're gonna double down and we're gonna be proud of our like heritage and be proud of our identity because you can't erase that. Like as much as you would like to scrub it off, like you just can't. Um, so there's lots of opportunities. So with that being said, it's just like yes, there's like a huge challenge up front, but that also means there's a lot of opportunities and different innovative ways that we can, find a way to, you know, resolve that. And I think it's just like we just can't like accept that fear. We just got to keep working towards it and just keep supporting and investing in our community and giving the resources and telling our people that we can do it. Like regardless of like who's against us and who's for us, like just keep going.
Yeah, I 100% agree that support, and I feel like another piece of that is just being very intentional with how you kind of like offer services to our community, like go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Francis, I saw your message. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you both, all three of you, honestly, truly inspiring. And I told you already, Alanis, but I'm so, so proud of you. This is an amazing thing you're doing. And I hope to keep connecting with all of you. Yeah, have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
With that, if there are any questions from the audience, we can kind of go into that now and transition into that. So we'll wait a few minutes and see if any questions come in.
In the
Also,
meantime, I do want to add to what like Anastasia was saying about, we're in this conflicted time where it's even hard to be our own true selves because we run an organization that's for Latinas, you could technically be sued now, in this day and age. And I think, you know, that's what they want. They want us to be scared. They want us to fear our own identities and question our identities because I mean, the thing is, nadie te puede quitar la nopal de la frente. Like you have it. Like it's right here. Like
yeah.
it's the color of our skin. It's our tone of voice. It's the way we express ourselves. And so, um, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what you're going through right now, you are Latina enough, you are Latina enough, you will always be enough. Even though the society right now makes you question our identity. But I just want to add that because I think right now we're in the sentiment that, a lot of our people are being looked at even from like immigration standpoint, through the work that we're doing. So just don't forget that you are enough.
Yes, sometimes I feel like I need to hear that all the time. Like I'll call my mom and I'll be like, "Mom, like I don't know, I'm feeling kind of down." And she's like my
Yeah.
biggest hype woman. I love it. So we have a question from the
Mm.
audience. Vicky, my friend, love her. She asked, as an accounting and finance double major, there are so many potential career paths to explore, but at times the options can feel overwhelming, and I've oftentimes been discouraged by others. What advice would you give to those who are navigating with uncertainty or facing challenges in the financial world? And how can she find clarity in her career direction?
Hmm. I like to tackle it, and then Leah, also would love to hear
Okay.
your thoughts on that. Well, first of all, I think whoever is like discouraging you, just maybe like take it with a grain of salt. And also, the way I kind of receive that type of negativity is like they're just kind of vocalizing their own insecurity. Ooh. Like, so I would just, take that, like, block it out if you can, but obviously it gets hard at times. So just maybe remind yourself that, like, maybe they're saying that because maybe they're insecure about themselves and maybe they're just trying to project that on me. Um, I resonate with that question because also when I was getting ready to graduate, I like didn't have like any job lined up for me either. And it's like there was no crystal ball telling me like this is the job that you're gonna get after graduation and like this is the dream job. If you have like multiple paths that are in front of you and you're like, I can go down this route or this route, I would say like just like do the one that you think is like most like maybe like the easiest approach, right? Like if there's a job offer already on the table and if you're like okay with the terms of it, then just go down that route, right? Like don't overcomplicate that equation either. And then kind of like what I said earlier, it's just like you got to try a little bit of everything because like you may have a thought of like, oh, this is the dream job, but then when you get into it, you're like, that's not the reality of it either. So just like I think while you're navigating, just keep an open mind, ignore what other people are saying because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to be clocking in and clocking out.
Yeah, I definitely believe we don't have a right answer right away, especially graduating from college. When I graduated, my first corporate job was investment banking. I hated it, but I was good at it. Like you could put me in front of anything, I could be good at it. And I think those are the skill sets that you realize that you'll learn in these environments. Even though you don't like the job that you have itself, you may love the environment. You might love the roles that impact your downstream or upstream. You might even be able to connect with people in completely different industries in the company that you're working for that aspire you to be in that role where you could do internal mobility is what they call, where you can move roles within your company. And I think for me, the way that I chose the role was the one that was given to me in the easiest opportunity that I knew was secure for my future. Because trust me, I applied to so many jobs when I graduated college. But the easiest one that felt exciting was one that gave me a moving stipend, that gave me, a starting salary that was decent in that time, took me to New York for 2 weeks. I established relationships. It was a global company. So it expanded my mind into figuring out what I wanted in the first place. Again, we don't have, like, there's no crystal ball to say this is the right one. And I think the universe will always align you to your right path, because years later, I pivoted during the pandemic. I was like, F corporate. I want to invest in myself. I decided to create my own brands, and you know, now I have a nonprofit and I do my creating content, and then I do a million things now. But it wasn't until I figured out what my passion was later down the line. And you'll find it, like, I feel like your intuition will always guide you where you need to be at the right place. But when it comes to the finance, there's definitely a lot of options, and you'll figure out what sectors you like and what you don't. Because when I first started, it was like, okay, it's either accounting, which is like bookkeeping, tax, or whatever, audit, or there's this finance, investment banking at that point in time. But then I learned there was roles in like asset management, financial planning. There's, VC now. Um, there's like financial law, there's compliance, there's risk, there's so many things within the finance field that, again, until you go into trying it, you won't figure out what you really like, or meeting these colleagues that are in those roles. And so, remember, just you don't have to struggle too much. Like, pick the path of ease sometimes, especially when you're starting out, and then the universe will guide you into the next roles that align with you, and you'll feel what's right. But don't forget to take up space. And don't also wait for the perfect one tampoco, because, maybe the decision is out there in front of you. You just have to make it.
Yes, I think hearing your story is honestly a reminder that n not everyone's path, and like very rarely is someone's path linear. Like, people bounce around and that's so normal. And I feel like sometimes there's this pressure that it has to be like XYZ, like, you graduate college and then you do an internship your junior year, then you get a return offer and then you stay there for it's like, no, what if I just want to do something that I want to do for myself? So yeah, that was very helpful. I know we're almost wrapping up, but there is a question in the Q&A. Someone asked for any book recommendations, so maybe if you have one, you can drop it in the chat as I wrap up the panel.
Yeah.
This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you both for sharing your wisdom and your stories and your commitment to making finance more inclusive, accessible, and powerful for our comunidad. Today reminded us that building wealth is not just about numbers, it's about access, healing, and self-determination. And as we've seen, there's no one way to do it. Whether you're managing a budget, navigating corporate roles, or channeling capital into community, it all counts. To everyone tuning in, thank you for being a part of this dialogue, and we hope this sparked new ideas, inspired you to take bold questions, and encourage you to take your next step, whatever that looks like. And before we close, I know Frances already left, but Anastasia or Leah, where can people follow your work and stay connected? Maybe like LinkedIn or personal socials, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, you can like drop them in the chat. But for those who want to stay involved with the Soul Collective, follow us on Instagram at Success of Latinas and keep an eye out for upcoming events, panels, and resources.
Yeah, just type in my name right there on LinkedIn, and yep, like you'll find me right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
also
same here. If you, I think LinkedIn is our most professionally active. Um, and then I create content on, economics, active, like wealth as a form of activism in my life, which is through the Latina Wealth Activist. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. But other than that, you better follow all of us and connect with us. And again, like, I don't take this for granted. Like, these little, like, I've met a lot of and mentored a lot of women in finance, because they sent me a DM and they're like, "Hey, I'm a Latina in this sector
yeah.
and I kind of want some mentorship. Can I schedule a call?" And I said, "Yeah, definitely." And then I get to see them graduate and get their first job and then kick off their careers. And, I love doing it. So if there's anything that I can do, please, please leverage me as a resource.
Yay, I love that. Thank you all so much, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you, Alana. You
All right,
did a great
bye.
job. Yeah.